Hello everyone, welcome to Positron Academy, and today the topic of discussion is on clinical radiobiology, in which we will study regarding linear energy transfer and relative biological effectiveness. So the first topic that we are going to study is on the deposition of radiant energy. So when radiations from a radioactive material or any radioactive source passes through a biological material, so they interact with the atoms and molecules and transfer energy to them. And this transfer of energy has two effects, and these are ionization and excitation. So if radiation is being absorbed by the biological material, then ionization and excitation will occur, and these are not distributed at random. Rather, these are localized along the track of the individual charged particle, and how the charged particle track will look like, it depends on the types of radiation involved. For example, for photons of X-ray, it gives rise to fast electrons and it carries unit of charge and have a very small mass. For neutrons, it gives rise to recoil protons and it carries a unit of charge. But the main difference between these recoil protons and the fast electron is about mass. The proton mass is 2000 times greater than of electrons, and for alpha particles it carries 2 electric charge and it has mass which is 4 times of protons and 8000 times of electron. And that's the charged particle track of electron having energy of 4 keV in liquid water. And if you keep looking at the track, we can see the density of charged particle track as it moves from the source to the end. The density becomes much more at the end. Reason is, at the end it has lower energy and the density of ionization increases. And again, if you go up in the time scale, you can see that these charged particle track, or the whatever ionized particles or the whatever the ionized excited species over here, these keep on diffusing away, and after some time it diffuses to a higher extent. And why it diffuses, I will let you know in the next slide. But again, if you see on the charged particle track of proton over here, we can see the charged particle track of proton is straight. And what are these over here? These are the secondary charged particle track. And why the proton has a straight track? Because of the higher mass. And again, if you go down, if you go up the time scale, you can see these charged ionized particles which are localized over the track. These keep on diffusing away, and these diffusing particles, which are the ionized species, are not stable one. These keep on reacting with the nearby cells molecules and start doing damage. That's the basic process. These ionizing radiation lead to the radiolysis of the water into H plus and OH minus radical, and these H plus OH minus radicals are themselves so unstable, so these keep on recombining among themselves and produce a series of highly reactive combinations like superoxide radical or peroxide, and these are so reactive species that it keep on damaging the cell by means of oxidative damage. So these are this background image is the electron micrograph of human cell, and these white dots are the computer simulation of the ionizing events. So if you see the track for the 5 keV electron, you can see it has a sparsely ionizing track. And again, if the electron track, if you see over here at 1 MeV, the track becomes much more sparsely ionizing. So as energy goes up, the density of ionization goes down. For same over proton, it has a straight track over here, and that's densely ionizing. But as proton energy goes up from 500 keV to 10 MeV, the density of ionization keep on decreasing. So that track looks like this. What's the over here? That's the secondary charged particle track, which has an energy of about 1 keV. We call it delta rays over here. So again, if I go ahead of time scale, so as we have seen over here, it keep on diffusing out. So these ionized particle that are localized over here will keep diffusing out and reacting on these molecules cells over here and keep on doing damage to them. And that's how this thing works out. So these deposition of radiant energy and the spatial distribution of the ionizing events produced by different particles, it varies enormously, as we have seen before. Like for electrons, the track are different, for protons track are different, and this radiation creates sparsely ionizing tracks and densely ionizing tracks. For sparsely, we have seen that the ionizing events are well separated in space, but for densely ionizing, they produce a dense column of ionization. And also one more thing, as energy goes down, the density of ionization increases over here. So as energy is less, density of ionization is higher, but as energy goes up, the density of ionization goes down. Okay, now the next topic of discussion is on linear energy transfer. So what we mean by the term called as linear energy transfer, that is the energy transferred per unit length of the track, which we call as linear energy transfer. And based on ICIO definition, the linear energy transfer of charged particles in a medium is a quotient dE by dl, where dE is the average energy locally imparted to the medium by a charged particle of specified energy in traversing a distance of dl, that is L equal to d by dl, and the unit of this LAT are in keV per micrometer. And this LAT is an average quantity because at the microscopic level, if you find out the energy per unit length of the track, it varies over a wide range of values. And that's the different ways by which you can measure the LAT, and these are either by means of track average method or by energy average method. So in by means of track average method, you are dividing the track into equal lengths and then calculating the energy deposited in each length and then finding the mean. But in case of energy average method, you are dividing the track into equal energy increments and averaging the length of the track over which these energy increments are being deposited. And this is a chart of radiation and their corresponding LATs, and you can see for cobalt 60 gamma rays, the LAT are 0.2 keV per micrometer. For 250 keV X-rays, the LAT is 2.0. For 10 MeV protons, it's 4.7, and for 150 MeV protons is 0.5. So out of these four, the third one, that is 10 MeV protons, have the highest LAT, that is 10 MeV protons will transfer highest energy per unit length of the track. And this method of averaging, like means of track average or energy average, makes little difference for X-rays or for monoenergetic charged particles. But if you consider the case of neutrons, and if you calculate their LAT by means of track average and by means of energy average, their value comes out to be different. Like for example, for 14 MeV neutrons, the track average LAT comes out to be 12 keV per micrometer, but for energy average method, the LAT comes out to be 100 keV per micrometer. And the optimal optimal LAT that these neutrons have with the biological system is correlated with this energy average method, that is equal to 100 keV per micrometer. So one more thing that should be kept in mind, that as energy goes up, the LAT goes down, and when LAT goes down, the biological effectiveness goes down. For example, in this case, when energy is less, for example, for protons having 10 MeV energy of proton, it has LAT of 4.7. But as you keep on increasing energy of the proton, the LAT goes down. And also when LAT goes down, the biological effectiveness goes down. So these are cell survival curves for cultured cells of human origin which are exposed to X-rays, neutrons and alpha rays having energy of 250 kVp X-rays, 15 MeV neutrons and 4 MeV alpha particles. And if you can see over here, as the LAT of the radiation keep on increasing, the steepness of the cell survival curve also keep on increasing. So these are less steeper, these are more broader curves, but as the LAT keep on increasing, the steepness of the curve keep on increasing. And if you calculate the end result for a given survival fraction, for example, of we calculate it for 10 to the minus 2, we can see that at lower doses of alpha rays, it will give you the same clinical endpoint than for neutrons and then for X-rays. So as you keep on increasing the LAT, the cell survival curves get more steeper and steeper. That is, with lower dose of the alpha rays, it will give you the same clinical endpoint as given by the X-rays. Now that's the way how these low LAT radiation and high LAT radiation interacts with the DNA. With low LAT radiation, the interaction sites are very sparse. So the probability that this low LAT radiation will interact with the DNA and cause double strand breakage are very low, and that's why cell lethality by means of X-ray are so low. But if you go and consider the case for alpha particles or for any other high LAT radiation, you can see there are more number of interaction sites. So that's why for high LAT radiation, there are higher probability that this radiation will go and damage your DNA and cause double strand breakage. And we know double strand breakage is highly correlated with radiation based lethality, and that's very important. That's why we see higher cell killing for alpha rays than for neutrons and then for X-rays. Is because of these alpha rays which causes more amount of double strand breakage in the cell's DNA, and that's the main reason for cellular lethality. Now the next topic of discussion is on relative biological effectiveness, and we know that equal doses of different type of radiation do not produce equal biological effect. So it means that if I give 1 gray of radiation to a system, that means if I give 1 gray of neutron to a system and if I give 1 gray of X-ray to a system, it won't produce the same biological effect. And the main reason for this difference is the pattern of energy deposition, that is the way neutron will deposit energy to the system and the way X-rays will deposit energy to the system are not equivalent. And that's the main reason why equal doses of different type of radiation do not produce equal biological effects. Now we introduce one more term which we call as the relative biological effectiveness, or we call it RBE, and it is defined as the ratio of doses required by two radiation to cause the same level of effect. That is, RBE equals to dose of reference radiation by dose of test radiation to give the same biological effect. And this RBE depends on the dose and also on the clinical endpoint. And the reference radiation that we are using over here, these are the low lead radiation. Commonly used are the 250 kVp X-rays or cobalt 60 gamma rays, since these radiations are usually available whenever RBE is being evaluated. So to make use of this RBE, let us have a small example. That is if 10 ray of cobalt 60 gamma rays kills 50% of mice in a group, and 1 gray of heavy ion radiotherapy kills the same 50% of mice in a group, so then RBE equals to 10 by 1. 10 is the reference radiation, that is the cobalt 60 gamma rays having dose of 10 gray, and for test radiation we required 1 gray of heavy ion radiotherapy for killing the same percentage of cell. So RBE is defined as a dose of reference radiation by dose of test radiation for the same clinical endpoint, and in this case we have to kill 50% of mice as the clinical endpoint, and that RBE comes out to be 10 by 1 equals to 10. So it means that the dose of reference radiation is 10 times the dose of test radiation, or we can say that the dose of test radiation is 1/10 the dose of reference radiation. So this is a typical cell survival curve for mammalian cells which are exposed to X-rays and neutrons. And if we want to calculate the RBE, and we have to focus on a given clinical endpoint. As you know, RBE is not constant, it differs from, it varies with dose and also on the biological endpoint. So if we want to calculate RBE for a survival fraction of 10 to the power minus 2, that is 0.01, then the RBE comes out to be 1.5 at survival fraction 0.01. And same goes for 0.6 survival fraction, the RBE is 3.0. And as the size of the dose goes down, the RBE goes up. So as you keep on decreasing the dose of test radiation, the RBE keep on increasing further. So that is about the RBE and the fractionated dose, and what effects we can see if we give doses of X-rays and fast neutrons in 4 equal fraction. So now let us calculate the RBE for single dose, and we have already calculated in the previous example for a given clinical survival fraction of 0.01, the RBE is 1.5 for a single dose. Now if you give a fractionated schedule for the same, which consists of number of small doses, and then calculate the RBE at the same clinical endpoint, that is at 0.01 survival fraction, the RBE comes out to be 2.6. That is, it is 2.6 for fractionated dose and 1.5 for single dose. So as you keep on increasing dose fraction, the RBE goes up. So in this diagram what we can see that the neutrons, it become more progressively more efficient as the dose part fraction is reduced or the number of fraction is increased. So next is the dependence of RBE on LET and the phenomenon of overkill by very high lead radiation. And we can see over here that this RBE is not constant, but it depends on the level of biological domain and hence on the dose level. And you can see at different clinical endpoints the RBE is changing. For cerebral fraction of 0.8, it has very high RBE, but as you keep on decreasing cerebral fraction from 0.8 to 0.1 to 0.01, these RBE keep on decreasing further. And these RBE and LET are highly correlated, so as LET keep on increasing, RBE also keep on increasing, and it attains a maximum when LET is equals to 100 kV per micrometer, and after that the RBE keep on decreasing. So these region at which the LET values are low results in less efficient cell killing and inefficient because more than one particle has to pass through the cell to create double strand breakage. So efficiently it does not kill the cell, that's why the RBE is quite low. But at these region, that at high LET region, these regions are also inefficient because at this region you are depositing more energy per cell and it produces more number of double strand breakage that are actually needed to kill the cell. That's why we call this region as overkilling, because you're killing the cell too much. You're giving more dose to the cell and you're creating more double strand breakage that are actually needed to kill the cell. That's why we call this region as overkill. And at optimum lead, it does deposit right amount of energy per cell, which produces just enough double strand breakage to kill the cell. And that's over here at optimum lead. The density of ionization or the average separation between the two events are equal to the diameter of the DNA double helix. So you just creating sufficient amount of DSP that are needed for cell killing. But at high LET or at this region you are getting more amount of ionization, you are creating and you are depositing more amount of energy per cell, and that thereby reducing the RBE. And at low LET you are not having enough double strand breakages which are important for cellular lethality, and at this value of 100 kV per micrometer you are getting enough double strand breakage that are required for cell killing. And now next is on oxygen effect and linear energy transfer. So the presence and absence of molecular oxygen dramatically influences the biological effect of radiation. So if a cell is hypoxic, it results in more radioresistant cell, and if a cell is oxic in nature, it is more radiosensitive in nature. So now we introduce one more term which we call as the oxygen enhancement ratio, and this oxygen enhancement ratio is the doses under hypoxic to aerated condition that produce the same biological effect. Fine. So OER is equal to radiation of dose in hypoxia by radiation of dose in air to give the same biological effect, that we call as the oxygen enhancement ratio. And this ratio can be seen over here. So these are three diagrams of different LETs and their corresponding OER, and you can see when we have used 15 MeV neutrons and then calculate the OER for a given clinical endpoint, the OER comes to be 1.6. And when we have used 4 MeV alpha rays which has more LET than the previous one, then OER drops from 1.6 to 1.3 for a given clinical endpoint for the same endpoint. And for high lead radiations like 2.5 MeV alpha rays, so we can see OER equals to 1. So it means that for high lead radiation, whether a cell is hypoxic or a cell is aerated, it makes no sense. So for high lead radiation, the oxygen effect is non-existent, and would say single graph over here. Now next is about how OER and LET are related. So at low LET, OER is higher, but as let keep on increasing, the OER drops drastically, and at 100 kV per micrometer of LET, the OER drops and attains a value of 1 at this value of LET. And that's how the OER and RBE are being distributed as a function of LET. And we can see that these two curves are the virtual mirrored images of one another, and as LET keep on increasing, RBE also keep on increasing, and this RBE attains a maximum at around 100 kV per micrometer, and this OER also drastically falls at around the same LET as which RBE rises. So the rapid increase of RBE and the rapid fall of OER, it occurs around the same LET, that is 100 kV per micrometer. And that's all for today. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel.